Last year, I made a review on the Mummy series, the Brendan Fraser series, and unfortunately, Tom Cruise's attempt of a Mummy movie. Now, I thought that was a good review. The movies, meaning The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, were great, except for probably Dragon Emperor, Tomb of Rivers called. And yeah, Tom Cruise is not him personally, but his film was a POS. But Tom Cruise did redeem himself since. Many who have followed this channel in the last 3 years know that I love the old school Universal monsters. Since I started this horror spectacular, I have done Dracula, I have done the Wolfman, and I have done Frankenstein. Now it's time for the Mummy to get its shine. In honor of the 90-year anniversary of the Mummy, let us begin the review. But before we begin, like, share, subscribe, do all that. Roll credits. Unlike Dracula, unlike Frankenstein, which were both based on novels, The Mummy was a little bit different. Universal producer Carl Laemmle Jr. was inspired by the opening of King Tut's tomb and The Curse of the Pharaohs. He wanted a movie to capture the essence of that, so he commissioned the writer Richard Schayer to find a novel, but of course there was no novel. But Schayer found a short story by Arthur Conan Doyle called The Ring of Thoth that bared a resemblance to the actual plot of the movie. Now, not to get too much into the background history, Laemmle and Schayer found a 9-page story called Cagliostro, the story about a 3,000-year-old magician who survives by injecting nitrates into his system, and the story taking place in San Francisco, California. Laemmle loved the idea a lot, so he hired another writer, John L. Balderstone, to write the script. Balderstone wrote the script for Dracula, Frankenstein, as well as covering the opening of King Tut's tomb. Balderstone changed the story around, placing it in Egypt, made it a revenge story, and Imhotep. On December 22nd, 1932, Universal released The Mummy starring Boris Karloff as Imhotep/Arthur Bey, with Carl Freud as the director and cinematographer as well. The film received positive reviews. On Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it an 88%. It was a box office success in Britain. You know, the British do love their Egyptian mythology, so that makes sense. But there's always people to give a film criticism. Now, some of the critics found that Helen's character, love for Egypt, the classical Egypt, instead of the Islamic Egypt, which doesn't make sense at all. Islam was really introduced until the 7th century, many years earlier, after the ancient Egypt period, so that criticism is weird. But anyways, in the opening credits slap for some reason. I think the music is from the ballet Swan Lake, and Universal actually uses it twice in their horror movies, one being this one and one being the year before with Dracula. Now, the opening of this film captures the essence of the Tut hysteria that was going around the early 1920s. In 1921, we get a reading from the Scroll of Thoth, which is contained a curse, and then we get an archaeological dig of the mummy of the high priest of Egypt, Imhotep, was found. Sir Joseph Wimpole describes Imhotep as being buried alive, and there was a curse placed on Imhotep's casket or sarcophagus, meaning that you shouldn't touch it. But guess who touches it? One of Wimpole's assistants stupidly reads the Scroll of Thoth, resurrecting Imhotep, and Imhotep escapes. The assistant laughs hysterically, realizing that something dead came back alive, and this assistant ends up dying in a straitjacket, laughing.
Thinking bastard!
10 years later, Imhotep has assembled himself into society using the name Arthur Bey, the Egyptian historian who's on a mission to look for the missing tomb of Anaxalamun, but calls on Sir Joseph Wimpole again actually his son, Frank, and Professor Pearson to dig for this tomb. They find the tomb, present the discovery to the Cairo Museum, and for some reason Imhotep disappears off the face of the earth. Moving on, Imhotep meets a woman named Helen, who bears a resemblance to Anaxamamu, who is staying with Dr. Mueller, played by horror icon Edward Van Sloan. Imhotep has fallen in love with this woman, but unknown to him, Frank feels the same way. But you could say Imhotep made a mistake, maybe not, by revealing that he is the mummy that was unleashed on the earth 10 years prior. So Mueller thinks it's a good idea to burn the scroll of Thoth to destroy the mummy once and for all. Mueller urges Sergius to use the scroll, but Imhotep says, "Not so fast, Johnny boy, I beg to differ." And he uses his magical powers to kill Joseph, and uses the servants to do his bidding. The bidding bringing the scroll to Imhotep. Imhotep hypnotizes Heather, or Helen. Is it Heather or Helen? I know her name starts with H. Oh my goodness. I think I've gotten dumb. But anyways, reveals to the woman that he was punished for trying to revive his forbidden love, Princess Anaxamamu. His next step is to mummify the woman to become his immortal bride. But his plans are put on hold, thanks to the quick thinking of Frank and Mueller, who come to the rescue, but that doesn't work. Heather has some type of ancestral past life that makes her prayer to the Egyptian goddess Iris. And I guess the goddess strikes the scroll on fire, breaking the spell that keeps Imhotep immortal. And he suddenly becomes dust, Thanoside. And I guess Frank has to call Helen back to the world as the scroll continues to burn ending the film. And what I mean by Frank has to call her back to the world, she's kind of still in this weird realm at the end. But that's pretty much The Mummy 1932. Unlike Dracula and the other monster movies, this film was never really received an official sequel. The later Mummy movies were kind of like spin-offs of some sort and never really followed up with the original. And it's also not as cultural relevant compared to like Dracula, Frankenstein, even Wolfman, but damn, it is now. The legacy of the Mummy spawned multiple spin-offs under Universal, with Lon Chaney Jr. leading the way, not Boris Karloff, who Universal for some reason used his stock footage. The legacy went past Universal into Hammer Productions, which was pretty much Warner Brothers type stuff, but with Christopher Lee starting in the same role as the other two before him, spawning multiple movies and then remakes by Universal starting in 1999. For some reason they made Christopher Lee work hard. He played Dracula, he played the Mummy. It's like, sheesh, they didn't even play Frankenstein. Man, he was working him hard. But let's get to 99. To what everyone believes with the Brendan Fraser Mummy films, those weren't really remakes, but probably reboots, but probably been the closest to the remake of 1932. Now, there are similar comparisons with the 1932 film and the 1999 film. Probably you can include some of the 2001 sequel to that. Both versions of Imhotep wanted their dead lover back, but they was both killed for similar reasons. Both tried to kill a woman that could resurrect his dead lover. Both mummies have some rivalry with some type of guy, swashbuckling type of guy, who loves the woman that Imhotep is trying to mummify. Let's see here. Imhotep is trying to fight someone who is trying to save the damsel of stress. They both use a servant. In this movie, they call him the Nubian in 1932. In 1999, you get Benny. Now, in 1932, Imhotep has magical powers, which he just puts people in a trance. Imhotep in 1999, that's a whole damn Marvel supervillain right there. Instead of the Scrolls of Thoth, we get the Book of the Dead. Ardeth Bay is not a cover for Imhotep, but he's a guard that's part of the Magi that protect the area that Imhotep is buried in the 1999 film. But that's enough of the comparisons. Back to 1932. My final thoughts. It's a good film for its time. It's simple. simple as it can be. Well, Hollywood was back in the day was simple in writing, not some complicated story that they're doing now, especially with that 2017 Mummy. We ain't gonna try to talk about that right now. Incompetent ass film. Now, I will give The Mummy an 8 out of 10. As far as scares, it's low, but I can see how it can scare people back in the day, because back in the day, people weren't used to mummies walking around killing people or trying to take over the world. That's mainly more in 1999. But yeah, matter of fact, I don't think any of the mummy movies from 1932 to present are really scary. Like, they're more action adventure. But anyways, tell me what you guys think about Mummy 1932. Have you seen it? But tell me down in the comments down below. He will return.